we're encouraging people to have a bit of fun as well, and not just make all those communications work. So, all the different memes and bits and pieces that get posted, having a bit of fun and a laugh.
So joining me on the call today, I've got Brent Charlton from Altitude Advisors. Welcome to the call, Brent.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. Maybe tell us a bit about Altitude Advisors and what you do.
Yeah, so Altitude Advisors is based out of here in Brisbane. We're an accounting, financial planning and technology consulting business. We're about 25 people.
Right.
So I've been going for about 12 years now.
Great. So tell me a bit about what you guys are doing to navigate the current economy.
Mainly it's just focusing on the basics. So making sure that we're touching base with clients, looking after clients.
Yeah.
And then, keeping an eye on our own personal cash flow as well, making sure that that's strong. So that way
fantastic.
we can just, focus on what we do best.
Yeah, fantastic. So let me ask you, you work with a lot of businesses. What opportunities do you see in the marketplace right now for small business?
I think the primary one that I'm telling clients is keep up your marketing efforts. I think a lot of when times get a bit tough, the first thing that gets cut is the marketing budget. Whereas, really they should be keeping that up and looking at savings in other areas if possible.
Yeah.
The other big opportunity I think is technology. I mean, people are becoming more comfortable with the use of technology. You see that with things like this Zoom and Teams and the like. So I think and a lot of the governments, state governments are putting a lot of grants out for how you can better utilize technology as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there too. Yeah,
and I've heard it been said that the last 6 months of technology advancement is the equivalent of a typical 6-year period.
Well, people, clients that you'd never get on a Zoom meeting or anything like that are quite happy. And when they've actually done it, they're like, actually, I prefer this because it's more convenient for them. So.
Yeah, well, we used to run a lot of breakfasts, and a breakfast event costs upwards of $4,000 or $5,000 just to feed the people. And now we just run the same events online, and it's just a massive difference in cost.
Yeah, so, and it's just more convenient. You don't have to get up early to go travel to get there and park and all those things. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell me a bit about your priorities within your organisation right now.
Priorities at the moment is just looking after our clients. I mean, our business doesn't exist without clients, so just making sure we keep up proactive communication with them, looking after them, and getting them through this crisis as well. So that's our main priority.
For a lot of people I've spoken to, this is a pretty profound time because they've done a lot of soul searching sort of during this period. I mean, have you had any personal lessons that you've taken out of this whole COVID event?
I guess it's probably the value of communication and being proactive with it. So just sort of being available, being authentic, I suppose. It's a buzzword lately, but it really is. It's sort of showing that you care and helping people out really. And it's both ways. Like when people touch base with you, make sure that you're okay. You really appreciate those things.
I mean, there's a hidden statistic with this whole COVID thing, which is the isolation has caused a lot of anxiety and mental illness or mental wellness, I should say, issues. And I think people when you're social, it's part of your business because you've probably got a fairly large office space, and everyone comes to work and they don't really think about the amount of communication that occurs naturally until you put them in isolation.
Well, also I think there's an interesting thing I found in our office is that we're all together. When we were all together, there was not as much communication as what there was sometimes when we were all separate because people made more of an effort to sort of touch base with people. And I think using like Microsoft Teams, for example, like there was a lot more just banter across the team because it provided a good way of doing that easily. Whereas you do kind of in every office, you always get little cliques of people that always sort of talk to each other because they have similar interests or personalities or what have you. But I found that but with everybody working from home, it allowed people to probably connect to maybe a little bit more as well.
Yeah, and I suppose you're right. There's not that intimidation of little cliques within the office because it's all very much like it's resetting the communication model, isn't it?
Yeah, and just showing you, we were encouraging people to have a bit of fun as well, and not just make all those communications work. So, you know, all the different memes and bits and pieces that get posted, you know, having a bit of a fun and a laugh.
You do a dad joke segment every day? Because that's what we do.
Oh, dear, yeah. No, we have a few people that are very much into them memes. So they always have one a day, and then the rest of us, if we see something good, we sort of just post it on there as well. So
yeah, fantastic. So let me ask you a bigger question. You've been in business for quite a while. What would you consider the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
I'm not sure if it's business advice, but it's something that I've always sort of like I don't know if it's a mantra or however you want to put it, but is control the controllables. You know, I think sometimes we can worry about too many things, and a lot of things that we can't control. So it's just sort of working out, well, can I do anything about this? And is there any actions that I can do to sort of control it? If you can't, then it's probably not worth your energy to worry about too much.
Yeah. I mean, that's an old Stephen Coveyism where he talks about things within your circle of control and things outside of your circle of control. He says, if it's outside your control, don't worry about it.
That's right.
Don't do anything about it. That's the point.
It's just wasted energy, really, that you could do on something you can control.
Yeah, that's really good. Let me ask you, do you have a favorite book in business or psychology or even not?
Well, it's kind of part business, part it's Endurance, which is a book on Ernest Shackleton and his failed expedition to Antarctica. It was, I think, just around the start of the Second World War.
Yeah.
So, and he had his whole crew on the pack ice over an Arctic winter, or Antarctic winter. So
yeah,
it's part adventure book, part leadership book. So.
Yeah. And what was the key inspiring message in that for you, the takeaway?
The takeaway is you know, to manage people effectively, you got to do that one-on-one. So you got to know the individual. That's the key part. You can't just have the same message to everybody. Every person is different, and you got to manage them differently. Yeah. So that was because that's how he got his crew through it. Yeah.
That's an important point. I think sometimes leaders think they just have one generic message and everyone should follow.
Well, and just because you tell something, some people, I've communicated that once. That's never enough. Because you got to touch each person at a different level.
There's an old saying that we use a lot in our coaching, which is true communication is the response you get. And so when you communicate, if people don't act in accordance with your expectation, that just means you didn't communicate well.
Yeah, I always like the one where it's sort of if people start saying the messages back to you the way that you would say it, then you go, okay, then that one's finally, I don't have to say that anymore.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but it's such an important aspect of communication, right?
Absolutely.
So just look, one last question for you, Brent. Number one piece of advice you'd be giving to someone in business right now?
The old cash is king. So make sure that you're across what your break-even point is, you know, and knowing what your cash outflows are. Yeah. And keeping an eye on your debtors or your accounts receivable, because that's where businesses will blow up in these times if they're not across that and got cash flow leakage.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I think there's a lot of people that are scared about cash, and the knee-jerk reaction to an event is to stop spending. And you already touched on, you know, this idea of don't stop spending on marketing.
I always like to say you can't save your way to a profit.
Yeah.
You know, like you think, oh, well, if I just keep cutting back expenses, but it comes at a detriment to other things. So you can do that for a very short period of time, but you can't do it for a longer term. So
yeah, gotcha. Yeah, fantastic. All right, Brent. Well, look, I appreciate your time on the phone, on the call today. It's been enjoyable to hear what your view of what's going on and how people can sort of navigate it. So thanks again for your time.
Thanks, David. Pleasure.
Cheers.